And welcome once again to our daily Bible study, studying the Bible from the front to the back of the book, starting in Genesis. Every single day we are reading and considering and discussing some chapters, seeing what comes up for us. Now, this is not really a deep dive. It's more of a reading and commenting together and looking for where God is in our lives, where God is in the world around us nowadays, in the situations that we are living, both personally and worldwide, confronting the situations that are happening out in the world, all of the things that are going on, and all of this anguish of the nations who don't know how to get out of this trap. The pangs of childbirth of the end time is here, and we're seeing like it's really coming in stronger and stronger every time the pang comes in. It's a little harder and it's a little longer and it's restricting us more and more. And you can say that it's for good. We can say that it's for good as much as we want. Fact is that we're going to have to go through this time of tribulation before something better can come, just as when there is the childbirth, right? My mom used to say there is no such thing as being a little bit pregnant. You either are or you're not, and whatever, and you're going to have to go with it when you are. So we are reading today from chapters 31 and 32. I'm aiding myself a bit with my Italian Bible. That's the thing about knowing all of these different languages. It's like you see the crossovers and it really helps you to understand at a deeper level. It's kind of stuff that you can't too easily explain sometimes, especially when, like me, you have situations where you have this, like I have an intermittent aphasia, so please bear with me if sometimes my sentences don't make too much sense. Welcome, Janice. You are very welcome to raise your hand and read the Bible, read from your own version of the Bible, discuss anything, anytime you'd like. I've put my phone in a position where I can better see it while I'm reading so that I don't miss out on people raising their hands, which has happened in these last couple of days. Right, so delving right in, Genesis 31, verse 1, reading from King James Version on the blueletterbible.org. And he heard the words of Laban, of Laban's sons, saying, Jacob hath taken away all that was our father's, and of that which was our father's hath he gotten all his glory. And Jacob beheld the countenance of Laban, and behold, it was not toward him as before. And then Jehovah said unto Jacob, Return unto the land of thy fathers, and to thy kindred, and I will be with thee. And Jacob sent and called Rachel and Leah to the field unto his flock, and said unto them, I see your father's countenance, that it is not towards me as before, but the God of my father hath been with me. And ye know that with all my power I have served your father, and your father hath deceived me, and changed my wages 10 times. But God suffered him not to hurt me. Thus, if he had thus, the speckled shall be thy wages, then all cattle bear speckled, and it said thus, the ring-straked shall be thy hire, then bear cattle ring-straked. Thus God hath taken away the cattle of your father and given them to me. And it came to pass at the time that the cattle conceived, that I lived lifted up mine eyes and saw in a dream, and behold, the rams which leaped upon the cattle were ring-straked, speckled, and grizzled. And the angel of God spake unto him in a dream, saying, Jacob. And I said, Here am I. And he said, Lift up now thine eyes, and see, all the rams which leap upon the cattle are ring-straked, speckled, and grizzled. For I have seen all that Laban doeth unto thee. I am the God of Bethel, where thou anointest the pillar. Thou vowedst a vow unto me. Now arise, get thee out from the land, and return unto the land of thy kindred. And Rachel and Leah said unto him, Is there yet any portion or inheritance for us in our father's house? Are we not counted of him strangers? For he hath sold us, and hath quite devoured also our money. For all the riches which God hath taken from our father, that is ours and our children's. Now then, whatsoever God hath said unto thee, do. Then Jacob rose up and set his sons and his wives upon camels, and he carried away all his cattle and all his goods which he had gotten, the cattle of his getting which he had gotten in Padan Aram, for to go to Isaac his father in the land of Canaan. And Laban went to shear his sheep, and Rachel had stolen the images that were her father's. And Jacob stole away unawares to Laban the Syrian, in that he told him not that he fled. So he fled with all that he had, and he rose up and passed over the river, and set his face toward the Mount Gilead. It just reminded me of a situation in my life in the past where I was sharing an apartment with other two families, and I and my little son, he was like 5, and another couple with their son who was younger, and then there was another couple as well. And these people were always, I was the only one who had a steady job, and they were preying on the situation, take advantage. And only after I realized that they were mistreating my son in my absence did I realize I needed to get out of there. And so I too didn't tell them anything. I stole away in the night with my son, and I didn't leave anything of mine or anything of what I had bought or anything with them. So it's kind of interesting when you're reading the Bible and you can find parallels in your own life. That is one thing that it just came to mind. I had completely forgotten about this. It was over 20 years ago, man. Okay. The things that we see here, we see how the envy of others, like if you are doing a good job and you are doing your best to be a person of God, you are doing a good job and you are prospering, the people around you start to envy you. And it's not necessarily, I don't know about you, I come from a situation where there was a lot of workplace bullying. Like all of my life, I've found myself in situations where there was lots of workplace bullying going on against me. And I was the hardest worker. I was one of the best workers. And I was helping others and teaching others, lifting them up, because I come from a background of coach, you coach other people to help them all. Like if team wins, everyone wins. And in most jobs where I worked, except with the exception of 3 places, 3 different places, the ownership as well as the colleagues were really bullies. And even like you're earning more maybe because you're working overtime and they envy you your money, but they're not willing to do the work. That's pretty much what I'm seeing in this situation here with Laban's sons getting angry at Jacob. And Laban as well, his countenance, his face was not towards him as before. So earlier, when as long as he was getting rich off of Jacob's work, he was making nice and partying with him. That leads us straight over to one of the Proverbs, which says, when you sit with a king, watch carefully who you have in front of you. Not so much the food, as much as the way the person is in front of you. It says, because he says, eat and drink and be merry, but his heart is not with you. So that's one question we need to ask ourselves. Is the heart of the people we spend most of our time with us or against us? Is the person we spend, if you are living with family, with extended family, like here in Italy, most people live with an extended family. If you're living with extended family, are you supported by them, or are they only supportive of you as long as you bring them prosperity? And that's very relative, very, very relative term. And so here God says to Jacob, take everything you have and leave. Now is the time to go. What does Jacob do? He immediately holds counsel with his wives. On the one hand, it's fabulous that his wives are supportive of him and say, yeah, you're right, let's just get out of here. On the other hand, what Jacob failed to do, God says, get up and leave. And Jacob says, okay, I'll go take care of this. And he gets up and leaves, but he doesn't wait. He doesn't ask God, tell me exactly how. And that is where trouble comes, starting up again in verse 22. And it was told Laban on the third day that Jacob fled. And he took his brethren with him and pursued after him 7 days' journey and overtook him in the Mount Gilead. And God came to Laban the Syrian in a dream by night and said unto him, take heed that thou speak not to Jacob either good or bad. Then Laban overtook Jacob. Now Jacob had pitched his tent in the mount, and Laban with his brethren pitched in the mount of Gilead. And Laban said to Jacob, what hast thou done, that thou hast stolen away unawares to me, and carried away my daughters as captives, taken with the sword? Wherefore didst thou flee away secretly and steal away from me, and didst not tell me that I might have sent thee away with mirth and with songs and tabret and with harp? And hast not suffered me to kiss my sons and my daughters? Thou hast now done foolishly in doing so. It is in the power of my hand to do you hurt. But the God of your father spake unto me yesternight, saying, take thou heed that thou speak not to Jacob either good or bad. And now though thou wouldest needs be gone, because thou sore longest after thy father's house, yet wherefore hast thou stolen my gods? So let's stop right there. The teraphim, the gods. So Laban, we have already seen back when Laban gave his sister Rebecca to go and become Isaac's wife, how materialistic he was, how fake his belief and honor to God was, how it was only pro forma, it was only surface. And in fact, he is a very materialistic man, and he relies on these teraphim, these other gods. Teraphim, I don't remember exactly where I heard this. The teraphim are kind of like, well, someone said that they are kind of like animal totems, like these totems that they would go and talk to and maybe receive even some kind of information, some supernatural information from them. It reminds me of a session that they had us do during one of the trainings for subconscious programming back in the day when I was still doing all of these. When I had been tricked that year into believing that subconscious programming and New Age type of self-healing practices, energy medicine, and so forth were actually only neuroscience, and it actually goes way much further than just neuroscience. It's like they're opening portals. The moment they blatantly, openly said, hey, let's all meditate together every day at the same hour to open new portals, I just like, no, I'm out of here, right? What they had at this one retreat was like this animal totem, and they were passing it around and saying only who had this totem in their hand could speak, and to look at it because it would give them information. And that was the last retreat I did with them. I was just like, whoa, no, this is spiritism. And so practically this is what Laban did. What is sad about Rachel is that she stole them. She stole her father's idols. So she was, and she was also the one who wanted the mandrakes. So she was probably practicing some form or other of witchcraft and spiritism as well, like on the sideline, right? So that's stuff, if we are in a habit of doing these things, and in the past, I myself, I used to do cards, I used to do various little things, nothing very big, but still, if we're going to look elsewhere, then rather than going to the Most High God for our answers and our direction, we better correct that, because God does not allow for that at all. Anytime you feel like commenting or you have a question, you can raise your hand and ask, or else just like type in the chat box. Okay, chat box is for Zoom, and there's the message possibility on Clubhouse. So these considerations are just popping up for me. If anything pops up for you, I'm really happy to hear from you. So moving on, then we left off in verse 31, and Jacob answered and said to Laban, because I was afraid. For I said, peradventure thou wouldest take by force thy daughters from me. With whomever thou findest thy gods, let him not live. Before our brethren discern thou what is thine with me, and take it to thee. For Jacob knew not that Rachel had stolen them. And this is another thing. Let's just make a little pause here as well. We saw a few chapters back how Rebecca curses herself. Like, we have to really start learning to put a lot of weight on the words we say, because words have power, both in the spiritual realm and in the physical plane. So practically, Jacob here didn't know that Rachel had stolen these, and he says, whoever stole your gods, let that person die. So we really want to measure, because we do not know what the consequences are. We do not know where such heavy, weighty declarations will land. And words are power. Let's try to use them for the good and not for the bad, but for ourselves and for others as well. 33. And Laban went into Jacob's tent, and into Leah's tent, and into the two maidservants' tent, but he found them not. Then he went out of Leah's tent and entered into Rachel's tent. Now Rachel had taken the images and put them in the camel's furniture and sat upon them. And Laban searched all the tent, but found them not. And she said to her father, let it not displease my lord that I cannot rise up before thee, for the custom of women is upon me. And he searched, but found not the images. For custom of woman, she is meaning she's having her monthly cycle, right? And this is interesting. I haven't delved into this yet, as we've been saying since the beginning. Every time we find the word woman, let's replace it with the word church, congregation, ecclesia, whatever the word you use to represent the gathering together of people in an organized faith, and see how that changes your perspective, both about God hating women, absolutely not, the opposite, and how all of these messages pertain to the churches. Verse 36, and Jacob was wroth and chode with Laban. And Jacob answered and said to Laban, what is my trespass? And what is my sin that thou hast so hotly pursued after me? Whereas thou hast searched all my stuff, what hast thou found of all thy household stuff? Set it here before my brethren and thy brethren, that they may judge betwixt us both. This 20 years have I been with thee. Thy ewes and thy she-goats have not cast their young, and the rams of thy flock have I not eaten. Cast their young means they didn't abort. They didn't have any abortions, so they were healthy. That which was torn of beasts I brought not unto thee. I bear the loss of it. So if the wild beasts attacked the flock, Jacob paid for it from his own pocket. Of my hand didst thou not require it, whether stolen by day or stolen by night. Thus I was in the day the drought consumed me, and the frost by night, and my sleep departed from mine eyes. Thus have I been 20 years in thy house. I served thee 14 years for thy 2 daughters, and 6 years for thy cattle, and thou hast changed my wages 10 times. Except the God of my father, the God of Abraham, and the fear of Isaac had been with me, surely thou hadst sent me away now empty. God hath seen mine affliction and the labor of my hands, and rebuked thee yesternight. So finally, this is finally like Jacob has been patient and kept his head low and everything. He's accepted all of the deception, although Jacob himself is quite the deceiver himself. So it's pretty much like he's kind of getting back some of his own, because he too is not the most honest person, not the person of the greatest integrity at the time, right? And so practically, but right now it's just like, now you're again accusing me of stealing, and you come and you look through everything and you can't find anything. So now really, now that's where we draw the line here. Now I'm going to say it all, right? And so he does, and he's right, because practically Laban, the only reason Laban treated him a little bit better than probably all the other servants is that he is Isaac's son. He is Rebecca's son. So it's like, okay, I can't take advantage of my nephew too much. Otherwise, my sister, who's going to hear her, right? So we really have to watch out. We're always talking about, like, if you're in any kind of self-help industry. Me personally, I find that self-help books, starting from 7 Habits of Highly Effective People, very useful. One thing that is not really taught is how to monitor the human nature of other people. It's kind of putting all looking inside, but not enough balancing it out with looking on the outside. Unless we know the nature of the people we are dealing with. And as we've said before, nature comes from ancient Egyptian, and it means pertaining to the spirit. So unless we know the spirit that guides the people that we are dealing with, unless we can discern that, recognize it, and respect it. Respect it doesn't mean bow down and kiss it. It means, like, you don't rub a cat the wrong way or it's going to scratch you. You know not to pull a dog's ears or it's going to bite you. So you respect the nature of the people around you, learn to discern it and respect it. So that's pretty much what Jacob has been doing the whole time he was there. And he's seen that Laban is this kind of person. So he's been respecting the nature, because when you respect the nature of the mountain, it's what keeps you safe. You respect the nature of the sea, it's what keeps you safe. So we have to learn that. Anyhow, moving forward in Genesis 31:43. And Laban answered and said unto Jacob, these daughters are my daughters, and these children are my children, and these cattle are my cattle, and all that thou seest is mine. So, and what can I do this day unto these my daughters, or unto their children which they have borne? Fake humility here. It's like wrestling himself out of the hot spot, right? Out of the hot seat, right? And now therefore come thou, let us make a covenant, and I and thou, and let it be for a witness between me and thee. And Jacob took a stone and set it up for a pillar. And Jacob said unto his brethren, gather stones. And they took stones and made a heap, and they did eat there upon the heap. And Laban called it, oh gosh, one of these words, Jegarashaduta, but Jacob called it Galeed. And Laban said, this heap is a witness between me and thee this day. Therefore was the name of it called Galeed and Mizpah. For he said, Jehovah watch between me and thee when we are absent from one another. If thou shalt afflict my daughters, or if thou shalt take other wives beside my daughters, no man is with us. See, God is witness betwixt me and thee. It's kind of like more of a threat than Laban isn't really making a pact with Jacob as much as he's kind of threatening him. He's still trying to, like, if God had not stopped him, he might have even killed him. Whereas here, God is stopping him. He's still trying to kick at him from beneath the table, so to speak. Genesis 31:51. And Laban said to Jacob, behold this heap, and behold this pillar which I have cast betwixt me and thee. This heap be a witness, and this pillar be a witness, that I will not pass over this heap to thee, and thou shalt not pass over this heap and this pillar unto me for harm. The God of Abraham, the God of Nahor, the God of their father, judge betwixt us. And Jacob sware by the fear of his father Isaac. Then Jacob offered sacrifice upon the mount, and called his brethren to eat bread, and they did eat bread, and tarried all night in the mount. And early in the morning, Laban rose up and kissed his sons and his daughters and blessed them. And Laban departed and returned unto his place. So, one question is, could this whole chaos been avoided had Jacob asked God, exactly how do you want me to go back to, in what manner should I go about going back home as you tell me to do, rather than deciding for himself and running. Because this reminds me of another Bible verse. It is not flee the devil, it is rebuke the devil, and he will flee from you. So every time someone is running away, they risk falling and hurting themselves more. And it's really hard sometimes, especially when you are the victim of so much abuse. It's really hard sometimes not to get up and run. If we manage to sit with the abuse, it's not fair. Still, if we manage to sit with the abuse and sit with God through the abuse and keep in prayer with him and keep waiting on him to give us the sign of how and where to go. The difference is enormous. When I ran away from that family of people who were taking advantage of me, those two families, and my son, and mistreating my son when I wasn't there. And it was only because of my hard work that they were earning, that they had a house, that they had so much food and so forth, because none of them had a job at the time. Only the contract was in their name and not in mine. But when I ran away from there, the way I did, I literally stole away in the night. When I did that, the things that happened after that, it seemed like I had found a safe place, and instead, no, I ended up living out of my car for almost a whole year. And so we really need to wait on God, learn from our mistakes and learn to wait on God for the solution of what to do in a situation until it becomes crystal clear. The whole time asking, praying God. Jacob so far has never really prayed to God, gone to God for an answer. It was always God showing up and saying, hey, do this. Hey, Jacob, that. Hey, Jacob, the other. But it was never Jacob to go and pray to God. Any ideas, thoughts, questions, parallels, personal stories as well are very welcome. That concludes our verse, the reading of chapter 31. We're moving on into chapter 32. And Jacob went on his way, and the angels of God met him. And when Jacob saw them, he said, "This is God's host." And he called the name of that place Mahanaim. We're not deep diving into the original word names of the words now today. We haven't got too much time for that. If you have time, or rather maybe you put it as an idea for you to be doing in the future, to go and do deep dive studies on the meanings of all of these names of all of these places, and also like find some maps and really look at how all of the travelings, the comings and goings, and you will see how certain happenings happen all in the same location. It's like there's a pattern here for us to be seeing and to be recognizing in our own life. Not one word of the Bible is there by accident. And Jacob sent messengers before him to Esau his brother unto the land of Seir in the country of Edom. And he commanded them, saying, Thus shall ye speak unto my lord Esau. Thy servant Jacob saith thus, I have sojourned with Laban and stayed there until now. And I have oxen and asses, flocks, and men servants and women servants, and I have sent to tell my Lord that I may find grace in thy sight. And the messengers returned to Jacob, saying, We came to thy brother Esau, and he also cometh to meet thee, and 400 men with him. So this is Jacob's first attempt to see what the situation is like. He's like, hey, brother, I know you hate me, you want to kill me because I stole your birthright. First I took your birthright and then I stole your blessing. But you know what? I've been blessed. I got so much stuff. I want to share it with you. I'm coming. And these people say, yeah, Esau, he's not too happy about you. He's coming with 400 people. I think he wants to kill you all. So, where is it now? Excuse me, I just lost the place. Right, so Genesis 32:7. Then Jacob was greatly afraid and distressed, and he divided the people that was with him, and the flocks and herds and the camels into 2 bands, and said, If Esau come to the one company and smite it, then the other company which is left shall escape. And Jacob said, O God of my father Abraham and God of my father Isaac, Jehovah, which saidst unto me, return unto thy country, unto thy kindred, and I will deal well with thee. I am not worthy of the least of all the mercies and of all the truth which thou hast showed unto thy servant. For with my staff I passed over this Jordan, and now I am become two bands. Deliver me, I pray thee, from the hand of my brother, from the hand of Esau, for I fear him, lest he will come and smite me, and the mother with the children. And thou saidst, I will surely do good to thee, and make thy seed as the sand of the sea, which cannot be numbered for multitude. And he lodged there that same night, and took that which came to his hand, a present for Esau his brother. So this is the first time we see Jacob approach God in prayer first. This is the first time, like when he was in this same area before. First, God speaks to him, and then he prays to God and kind of makes this pact with him. Oh, if you give me all of this, then you will be my God, right? And now he is so afraid for his life and the life of all of those with him that he looks for God. He's like, I can't outwit my brother this time, can I? And maybe I can, let's see. So now we go into the gift that he prepares for Esau, verse 14. 200 she-goats and 20 he-goats, 200 ewes and 20 rams, 30 milk camels with their colts, 40 kine and 10 bulls, 20 she-asses and 10 foals. And he delivered them into the hand of his servants, every drove by themselves, and said unto his servants, pass over before me, and put a space betwixt drove and drove. And he commanded the foremost, saying, when Esau my brother meeteth thee, and asketh thee, saying, whose art thou, and whither goest thou, and whose are these before thee? Then thou shalt say, they be thy servant Jacob's. It is a present sent unto my lord Esau, and behold, also he is behind us. And so commanded he the second and the third, and all that followed the droves, saying, on this manner ye shall speak unto Esau when ye find him. And say ye moreover, behold, thy servant Jacob is behind us. For he said, I will appease him with the present that goeth before me, and afterward I will see his face. Peradventure he will accept of me. So went the present over before him, and himself lodged that night in the company. And he rose up that night and took his 2 wives and his 2 women servants and his 11 sons, and passed over the ford Jabbok. And he took them and sent them over the brook, and sent over that he had. So practically, at this point, Jacob has prepared all of these teams that he's going to be sending before him. And like, there are all these presents coming one after another, after another, after another. What is this? It's another scheme. It's another way to, like, he's like, okay, I'm going to have to find a way to run away from Esau. I'm going to have to find a way to keep me and my family safe. So I've already divided my family into 2 different parts, which, if we think about it later down the line, Israel becomes two different parts. We have Israel of the north and Israel of the south. That would be the 10 tribes of Israel or Ephraim, and the 2 tribes down in the south, Judah and Benjamin, right? So it's like, this is happening centuries before it actually happens. And so he's sending them forward, and he's like, okay, this way we're going to stall Esau. And if I get bad news, then we still have a chance to run away. But this is the cowardice of Jacob down here. He sends his wives and sons across the ford, and he himself stays behind. Like, he's a coward. He's acting really like a coward here, right? So we could bash Jacob for this. That's one big problem nowadays. We are cowards at our core. We do not have courage unless by what we believe to be right. So much more, even more courage when we believe in the Most High God. That is the only thing that has given me courage, true courage, over the years. That's what makes the difference between being reckless and being courageous, for example. When you really put your trust in God for all the right reasons, not the kind of throw yourself from the temple because the angels will lift you up. That's tempting God. But like when you are in the face of persecution or threats, and you stand up and you do the right thing, not because you feel like it, you're trembling, but you do it because you know that that is God's, you are obedient to God's spirit. Moving forward in verse 24, and Jacob was left alone, and there wrestled a man with him until the breaking of day. And when he saw that he prevailed not against them, he touched the hollow of his thigh, and the hollow of Jacob's thigh was out of joint as he wrestled with him. And he said, let me go, for the day breaketh. And he said, I will not let thee go, except thou bless me. And he said unto him, what is thy name? And he said, Jacob. And the angel said to him, thy name shall be called no more Jacob, but Israel. For as a prince hast thou power with God and with men, and hast prevailed. So let's stop right there. This King James translation is just as twisted as any other translation. If we want to talk about which translation is twisted properly and which one is not. All translators, whether they have been a group of translators or a person alone, all human beings fall short when translating the Bible, as in they want it to say what they want it to say. Here it says, as a prince thou hast power with God and with men, and hast prevailed. That's not what the original says. The original says that you have wrestled with God and wrestled with men. You have wrestled with the not wanting to do what you know to be right, which would be the moral compass, the law which God has written in our hearts. You have wrestled with your wanting to not do what is right, and you have wrestled with your fleshliness, with your own, let's just call it sin right now, and you have prevailed. You are overcoming that. And so your name is no longer Jacob, which would be supplanter, deceiver, but rather Israel. Let's open it, because let's open up the Strongs of this. God prevails is the translation, is the way it's used. The meaning, God prevails. If we go down and we look at Gesenius Hebrew Chaldee lexicon, Israel also means contender, soldier of God, from to fight. So the word Israel means contender, someone who contends with God. That's an interesting thing to know later on. Every time in the Bible we find the word contender, someone who contends. Sometimes the word Israel is used as someone who is contending against God. So we need to really pray for God to give us the discernment to understand these subtleties according to the context. When we look at the context, and we compare it with other parts of the Bible, that's when things become more clear. Moving forward in Genesis 32:27, and he said unto him, what is thy name? Sorry, missed that. 29. And Jacob asked him and said, tell me, I pray thee, thy name. And he said, wherefore is it that thou dost ask after my name? And he blessed him there. And Jacob called the name of the place Peniel, for I have seen God face to face, and my life is preserved. And as he passed over Penuel, the sun rose upon him, and he halted upon his thigh. That would mean he was limping on his thigh. Therefore, the children of Israel eat not of the sinew which shrank, which is upon the hollow of the thigh, unto this day, because he touched the hollow of Jacob's thigh in the sinew that shrank. And here we have something really fabulous. One bit of information, you're going to have to go and do your own research on it. This one just excites me because turns out that is also why Native American, I'm not sure if it's all of them, but there are various groups among which the Cherokee, and I come from Cherokee as well, they do not eat the hip of the deer. Turns out that Cherokee it seems that the Cherokee are descendants of Israel. And that, like, I don't remember exactly where I saw this, it was some time ago, but practically the Cherokee, they were actually Hebrews, they were actually Israelites, the initial ones, and they don't eat the hip of the deer. And I think there's also, like, I don't remember the area in America where there's all ancient inscriptions on rock, which is Paleo Hebrew. What is the importance of the hip? The hip represents the authority. And the thing is that Jacob until now has never been using his authority appropriately. So here the angel of God who shows up in like a man, like a real man, not just like a huge angel, like the angel like they depict it, with wings and everything. And this is practically, I'm thinking that this is the exact same angel which has been appearing to Abraham and to Isaac as well. And so at this point, it's like this angel touches him in his authority, takes away his authority. He's limping on his authority. He's been using it wrong all his life. He's been supplanting, he's been taking over, just the same as Sarah and Rebecca. He's been putting himself in the place of God as far as deciding on how to make God's will come true. God promises this, and he's like, okay, cool, I'll make it happen. No, God promises this. Wait to see how God will make it happen. And don't misuse your authority to be messing things around, to come out on top, pretending to be, just lucky, right? So these are some things that we really need to be looking at for ourselves, and also keep track of what's going on around us in the world. Nowadays, there is such a lack of integrity. All of these huge companies making all of these professions of integrity and leadership and everything, and yet when it comes to the smallest of situations, rather than use their authority appropriately to set things right, they will try to cover it up, try to evade responsibility. instead of stepping into integrity and making things and doing things for the higher good. There are no small things, just as there are no small words in the Bible. Every single small word means something very important. There would be so much to be talking about the name of these places: Peniel, face of God, faces of God, because it's plural. God shows up in so many different ways, and that's another parallel I love always doing. Like when you start stepping into integrity, you have many facets. If you polish all of those facets rather than faces, you polish each of those facets, the light shines through so much better. Whereas if you keep on wearing faces and hide the rest, to be hiding the rest, that's where things are going to be going wrong. And I'm just looking through my notes here a moment. Wrestled with God, Esau's evil intent, fervent prayer. When we are in difficult situations, fervent prayer. Fervent prayer. Prayer should be fervent, even when long before we even end up in these difficult situations. It's sad how people, they only look to God when things are so bad, so wrong, that they are afraid of for their life or whatever disaster. And the one prayer that has come up for me time and again, every single time, like in the worst times of my life, where it seemed like I had lost everything that was most important to me. When the prayer was, God, I surrender to whatever it is. I don't know what to do here. I'm willing to accept anything from you. I don't know how to keep doing things. I don't know how to keep living for you in this situation. That was when the peace which surpasses all understanding would come over me, and it's happened more than once. And like 20 minutes after, I was always receiving a response. Like 20 minutes, as short as that, a response would come to me from somewhere, from the most unexpected sources. And that is pretty much everything I have to say for today's Bible study. If anyone else has any kind of comments, questions, ideas, thoughts, personal testimony, personal witness of what they've been through, you're very welcome to share them, comment. These videos are going to be going on the YouTube channel. I'm a little bit behind on uploading everything. Yes, as usual. Bear with me, please. Thank you for joining. Thank you for listening in. And I've noticed just the other day that Clubhouse is recording, so there's replays. So people I hadn't noticed on Clubhouse yet, so you can even go back and listen to everything on Clubhouse as well. Without any further ado, thanks again for joining. See you tomorrow for the next Bible study, starting in Genesis 33 through to 33 and 34. We're having tomorrow. I'm closing the room in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Ciao for now.